First-century attestations of Jesus, or early sources that mention Jesus and provide information about his life, teachings, and impact, are extremely important for understanding the historical context and significance of Jesus and the early Christian movement. These early sources provide valuable insights into the beliefs and practices of the early Christian communities, and help scholars and believers to better understand the teachings of Jesus and how they were understood and applied by the early Christians. First-century attestations of Jesus include the New Testament Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which contain accounts of Jesus' life, teachings, and miracles. The letters of the Apostle Paul, which provide important information about the beliefs and practices of the early Christian movement. And other early Christian texts, such as the Didache, the first letter of Clement, the letter of Barnabas, and the Epistle of Polycarp, which contain teachings on Christian doctrine and practice. The early Christian church produced a large number of texts that provided important information about the beliefs and practices of the early Christian communities. These texts were widely circulated and read by believers, and played a significant role in the spread of the Christian faith. Over time, many of these texts have been preserved in the form of manuscripts, which are written copies of texts that are made by hand. There are a large number of manuscripts of early Christian texts that have survived to the present day. And these manuscripts provide valuable insights into the history and development of the early Christian church. Let's go over a few of these early attestations, starting with the secular and non-Christian attestations, and then moving into the Christian. Pliny the Younger was a Roman statesman and writer who lived in the late 1st and early 2nd centuries. In one of his letters, written about 112 AD, he wrote to the Roman Emperor Trajan seeking guidance on how to deal with Christians in his province. Here is the relevant passage. They affirmed, however, that the whole of their guilt, or their error, was that they were in the habit of meeting on a certain fixed day before it was light, when they sang an alternate verse a hymn to Christ, as to a God, and bound themselves by a solemn oath, not to any wicked deeds, but never to commit any fraud, theft, adultery, never to falsify their word, not to deny a trust when they should be called upon to deliver it up. This passage, which appears in Pliny's letter to Trajan, describes the beliefs and practices of early Christians, including their worship of Jesus as a God and their commitment to living a virtuous and upright life. The letter was likely written around 112 CE, making it an important early reference to Jesus and the early Christian movement. The historian Josephus wrote about Jesus in his Antiquities of the Jews, which was likely written around 93 to 94 CE. Here is the passage that is traditionally believed to refer to Jesus. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. For he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him. For he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day. Suetonius was a Roman historian who lived in the late 1st and early 2nd centuries. In his Lives of the Caesars, he wrote a section on the Roman Emperor Claudius, which includes a reference to Jesus. Here is the relevant passage. Since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Chrestus, he expelled them from Rome. This passage, which appears in Suetonius' Lives of the Caesars, mentions a person named Chrestus who was responsible for causing disturbances among the Jews in Rome. Some scholars believe that this name is a reference to Jesus, as the name Chrestus was sometimes used as a Latinized version of the name Christos, which means anointed one in Greek. Others believe that the name Chrestus refers to a different person entirely, and that Suetonius was not aware of the historical Jesus overall. This passage is an important historical reference to Jesus, but its meaning and significance are still the subject of debate among scholars. Now we have the Christian sources from the late 1st or early 2nd century. The Didache, or Teaching of the 12 Apostles, is an early Christian text that was likely written in the late 1st century. It is a manual of instruction for Christian communities, and is one of the earliest surviving examples of Christian catechesis. The Didache is divided into two parts. The first part contains teachings on Christian doctrine, including the importance of living a virtuous and holy life, the role of the 10 Commandments in Christian living, and the importance of the Lord's Prayer. The second part contains instructions on Christian practice, including instructions on how to celebrate the Eucharist, how to baptize new believers, and how to treat traveling Christian teachers. The first letter of Clement is an early Christian text that was likely written in the late 1st or early 2nd century. It is a letter written by the Christian community in Rome to the Christian community in Corinth, and is one of the oldest surviving Christian documents outside of the New Testament. The Roman Christians address a number of issues that had arisen in the Corinthian church, including divisions among the believers, improper behavior by some members of the church, and the appointment of new leaders. The letter also includes teachings about Christian doctrine and moral behavior, and encourages the believers in Corinth to live lives of humility and service. The letter of Barnabas is an early Christian text that was likely written in the late 1st century. It is not considered to be inspired scripture by most Christian denominations, but is still considered to be an important historical document that provides insight into the beliefs and teachings of the early Christian movement. Clement of Alexandria, an early Christian theologian who lived in the late 2nd and early 3rd centuries, is known to have quoted from the letter of Barnabas in his own writings. This suggests that the letter was widely circulated and considered to be an important source of information about early Christianity. The letter of Barnabas is also included in the Codex Sinaiticus, an ancient Greek manuscript of the Bible that dates back to the 4th century. The Codex Sinaiticus is considered to be one of the most important and reliable witnesses to the text of the New Testament. And the inclusion of the letter of Barnabas in this manuscript indicates that it was considered to be an important early Christian text by some early Christian communities. The Epistle of Polycarp is an early Christian text that was likely written in the mid-2nd century. It is a letter written by Polycarp, the bishop of Smyrna, to the Christian community in Philippi. In the letter, Polycarp writes about the importance of living a virtuous and holy life, and encourages the believers in Philippi to stand firm in their faith despite persecution. He also provides guidance on how to interpret the Bible and warns against the dangers of false teaching. The Epistle of Polycarp is an important early Christian text that provides insight into the beliefs and teachings of the early Christian movement. It's important to remember when someone comes to you saying there are no early attestations of Christ, that they are incorrect. Jesus mythicism is the belief that Christ never truly existed. Even among secular scholars, this view is almost universally denied. Bart Ehrman has a very good quote in regards to the subject. This is not even an issue for scholars of antiquity. The reason for thinking Jesus existed is because he is abundantly attested in early sources. If you want to go where the evidence goes. I think that atheists have done themselves a disservice by jumping on the bandwagon of mythicism, because frankly, it makes you look foolish to the outside world. If that's what you're going to believe, you just look foolish. Thank you for joining us for this video on early attestations of Jesus. We hope that you have gained a deeper understanding of the significance of these early sources and their value in helping us to better understand the life and teachings of Jesus. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We have many more informative and engaging videos on a variety of topics, and we would love for you to join us for future content. We want to bless you and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. We hope that you will continue to grow in your knowledge and understanding of Jesus and the early Christian movement, and that you will be encouraged and uplifted by the message of hope and love that is at the heart of the Christian faith.